There he is.
There he is.
Yes, I'm glad I waited. Now we can start the show. All right, perfect timing. Let's get this party started. It's 6:30 p.m., March 4th, 2020. I'd like to call tonight's session of the City of Delaware Planning Commission to order. Could the clerk please read the roll?
Mr. Badger.
Here.
Mr. Halter.
Here.
Mr. Prahl.
Here.
Mr. Volnick.
Here.
Mayor Riggle.
Here.
Vice Chairman Mansoris. Chairman Simpson.
Here. Do I have a motion to excuse?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Badger, second by Mayor Riggle.
Mr. Badger.
Yes.
Mr. Halter.
Yes.
Mr. Prahl.
Yes.
Mr. Volnick.
Yes.
Mayor Riggle.
Yes.
Chairman Simpson.
Yes. Moving on to the next item under the regular meeting agenda, the approval of the motion summary of the Planning Commission meeting held on February 5th, 2020, as recorded and transcribed. What's the wish of the commission?
Motion to approve?
Motion by Mr. Prahl, second by Mr. Halter.
Mr. Badger.
Yes.
Mr. Halter.
Yes.
Mr. Prahl.
Yes.
Mr. Volnick.
Yes.
Mayor Riggle.
Yes.
Chairman Simpson.
Yes. All right, moving right along. Item number 3, regular business. Could the clerk please read item A into the record?
Item A, Terra Alta, Case 1, 2020-0258, a request by Terra Alta LLC for rezoning amendment for Terra Alta from A1 and R2 PMU to A1 and R2 PMU on approximately 472.9 acres and located north of Bromiller Road, east of Pollock Road, and west of Berlin Station Road. No zoning changes to the Stockdale Farms portion of the development. Case 2, 2020-0259, a request by Terra Alta LLC for a conditional use permit allowing the placement of a mixed-use overlay district, PMU, for Terra Alta on 472.9 acres zoned A1 and R2 PMU located north of Bromiller Road, east of Pollock Road, and west of Berlin Station Road. Case 3, 2020-0260, request by Terra Alta LLC for an amended preliminary development plan for Terra Alta on approximately 472.9 acres on property zoned A1 and R2 PMU, located north of Bromiller Road, east of Pollock Road, and west of Berlin Station Road. In Case 4, 2020-0261, a request by Terra Alta LLC for an amended preliminary subdivision plat for Terra Alta on approximately 472.9 acres on property zoned A1 and R2 PMU, located north of Bromiller Road and east of Pollock Road and west of Berlin Station Road.
Thank you.
Yeah, like I said, the site's north of Broadmiller, east of Pollock, almost 473 acres. A lot of history here. Actually, it's 2 different subdivisions that have been approved 2 different times, and a addition to the plan. One owner recently purchased this whole entire tract and want to rezone the entire tract with development text. The northern portion of it is where Terra Alta was approved in 2008. The extreme southern portion of it is Stockdale Farms, which received approval in 2014. What they're proposing to do is to add the Rogers piece in the center, add single-family lots to that development, and incorporate the zoning of Terra Alta, Rogers, and Stockdale together for one development under one developer with one development text, and ultimately one plan divided into several sections. So the Stockdale Farms portion, nothing's changing to the Stockdale Farms plan than what was approved in 2014. The only thing that's changing in Terra Alta is there's 12 sub-areas within the entire development. It's going to have 800, the whole development would have 870 single-family units. 657 will be single-family lots. 213 will be condominiums. The only thing that's changing in the Terra Alta portion is the mix and the size of the lots and housing. The Rogers portion would be the new development, new lots in this development. So so that's the only thing we're adding. And this will be under one development text also. The northern portion, which is the Terra Alta, that's currently zoned A1 with the planned mixed-use overlay. The Stockdale portion is zoned R2 with the mixed-use overlay. And currently Rogers is zoned A1, and they want to change that to A1 PMU. This is the aerial of the site. The northern portion is where the Terra Alta is, and you can see Section 1 has been platted, and they're actually building homes out there in Terra Alta. Nothing's changing in that, no development requirements or anything. So that's going to be as is. As you can see, there's a lot of trees on the Terra Alta site, the Rogers site. It's almost all trees, and as you get down to Stockdale, it's fairly flat with some trees on the site. From a comprehensive land use plan perspective, the Terra Alta portion is considered a very low density, single family. The Rogers portion also has the same designation, while the Stockdale has low density, single family. The Rogers portion, for the rezoning, they're proposing 72 single family lots on the almost just over 68 acre site. So the density of that development, or the Rogers piece itself, would be just 1.04 acres, units per acre. And there'd be 61 90-foot lots and 11 70-foot lots. So these lots would be the larger ones for the entire development, and also the most heavily treated. The northern portion, there's a lot of topography in the northern 2/3 of the site. This is the entire development together, and I just outlined the red is where current Terra Alta is, the green is the Rogers, and the blue is the Stockdale, to be consistent with the last exhibit. From an access perspective, Terra Alta Section 1 is currently accessed from Pollock Road, from Terra Alta Drive, which extends ultimately to Berlin Station Road. And after the 164th lot is approved in the eastern section, Terra Alta Drive needs to be connected to Berlin Station Road. That's similar to the original approval. The southern portion, which is today's Stockdale, would have two access points from Broadmiller Road, one at a proposed roundabout, in essentially the center of the development, and one a right-in, right-out on the eastern portion of the development, as was approved. And with this development, the eastern portion, right-in, right-out, would be required after the 64th lot is developed and approved in this southern section. There would be an emergency access into the first section down here through Skipton Loop Drive that would extend to Broadmiller Road, and that could be eliminated after the 186th lot is developed in the southern portion of this development. For connectivity purposes, there would be a road from Broadmiller Road, extend north through the Rogers property and Terra Alta to connect with Terra Alta Drive. So you'd have north-south connectivity between the subdivisions also. Also, the entire development would be under our transportation contribution fee of $1,000 per development unit. And any roadway or off-site improvements would be the responsibility of the developer. As I said, the site layout to the north 2/3 there's a lot of topography and heavily wooded. So you see some cul-de-sacs. You see these are some very nice lots. The southern portion where Stockdale, it's fairly flat. There is a 100-foot transmission line that bisects the site. There's a stream corridor that goes north and south in this area. So that's your southern portion is your typical subdivision. The north has a lot more character just because of topography. I indicated earlier there are 12 sub-areas for the development. And each sub-area would determine to tell you what use is allowed, the minimum lot size, the maximum density, the number of lots in each sub-area, the setbacks, and minimum building square footage for the house. I indicated sub-area 1 is already developed. Those development standards will remain the same as approved before. Each other color up here is a different sub-area, and they would have different development requirements per the development text in the plan. The orange portions, sub-area 10, 11, and 12, those are the condominium portions of the development. And those site plans will be determined later when they come in for preliminary development plans when they're ready to develop those. And there's some minimum standards for those also. From a residential design perspective, all the houses would have to meet our minimum standards in our zoning code, plus some additional standards. The front elevation of each house would have to be 35% natural material, which would be brick or stone. Fiber cement siding, EIFS, stucco, and similar products would be permitted, but they don't count towards natural materials. That's one change we had from the last two plans that were approved. Each building would have each house would have dimensional shingles, and there'd be no blank walls on any sides of the single-family units. The condos would have the same development standards required for that. From a parkland and open space perspective, the entire development would have just over 179 acres of open space and parkland. In the green are the reserves. I think there's almost 36 reserves through Stockdale Farms, Rogers, and the southern portion, which is Stockdale. West of Pollock Road along the creek, in Terra Alta portion, they're to dedicate or have dedicated 24.5 acres to the city, and that would be for city parkland along the river. And also along Stockdale, I think there's just over 4.5 acres west of Pollock Road and adjacent to the river that would dedicate to the city. And on Rogers, there's about a half acre. So they are dedicating almost 30 acres to the city for parkland. The only change on Terra, the reserve areas are essentially the same as which was approved for. The only change is in, I think, Reserve F in this area, the developer's proposing a clubhouse, pool, and associated parking for that development. That's a pretty nice amenity that they added to this development. The Stockdale Farms portion, the development and open areas would remain the same as approved, except for in this area here, they're adding a pool in this area also. So that's the only revision to Stockdale in general. Landscaping and screening. The development would require a comprehensive landscape plan of street trees, perimeter landscaping, and park and open space landscaping. There are some highlights that were required per the development text and past approvals. Along Berlin Station Road, they need some mounding and landscaping adjacent to the single-family homes across Berlin Station and to the north. Also, in this Rogers area, just east or west of these 3 or 4 lots here, there's a existing house on the property to the west. We want to put 8-foot pine trees in that area to help supplement the tree preservation area. Stockdale Farms area, the same requirement was, when that was approved, there's a house in this area, and these lots that abut that house would have that same requirement. We want to make sure we maintain that requirement. And along Broadmiller Road, where the improvements are occurring, they need a 3 to 6 foot high mound with landscape and buffering in that area. That remains consistent with what was originally approved. From a bike path perspective, this plan shows the bike path, and the red dashed lines is the bike path. One's required on the north side of Broadmiller Road when that gets improved. And also north of Broadmiller Road, there's a bike path that extends through the Stockdale portion of it, through the creek bed in this area. The Rogers portion probably in front of the houses, and Terra Alta through the reserves area all the way north to the property line to the north. And each of those bike paths, the bike path will be built when the sections of each for each development comes in. As I indicated earlier, there's a lot of trees on the site, a lot's being preserved, more is being preserved and taken out. And for the Rogers portion, we use the same calculus as we use for Stockdale Farms and Terra Alta for replacement. Each single-family lot would require a $500 replacement fee. Each condominium unit would require a $200 replacement fee at building permit. And they're saving almost more than 55% of the tree area in the development. Lighting plans would be required for each section as they come in, final development plan and final plats. The entire development would have to achieve compliance with the fire department requirements. In conclusion, staff recommends approval of the rezoning with 3 conditions: the conditional use as is, the amended preliminary development plan with 34 conditions, and the amended preliminary plat with 34 conditions. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'd just say, this was a big exercise for staff and for the applicant and his team, and we appreciate all their help and diligence in this. Essentially, what we're trying to do is get this all under one development plan and one zoning text. It's all under one developer now. It'll be master plan and master develop. After at least 2, and I'd say many more times than that through planning and zoning in this city, through 15 or 20 years, depending which piece you're looking at. But there's been a lot of work behind the scenes. To members of the public that might be here, Stockdale is not changing. Terra Alta is essentially not changing except for sub-area 4 with a little bit different unit types, but still single-family lots on their own, on individual lots. The condominium pieces aren't changing. The calculus and the approach to trees and preservation and payment is not changing. The Rogers piece is really the new piece in this case, and that's bringing it into this development. I think those will be, our comprehensive plan talks about, today's comprehensive plan talks about executive housing lots. The Rogers piece is really providing certainly executive housing lots within our city in a new subdivision in a way that we just don't have in any other new subdivisions. In total, we appreciate the developers bringing this all together. The development will be better because it's master planned and developed together. The internal wayfinding and the signage will be better coordinated and make sense throughout this large development. I would point out to you that, and the mayor knows this, that council has seen this plan before. It's nothing really new to her because they were shown this while they were deliberating on a new community authority for this development, which they approved, a developer-driven new community authority. So that was just a different piece of this that Planning Commission doesn't have to deal with. But in a way, we're kind of catching this up to you and through the process. I think overall, I appreciate staff's efforts, particularly Lance. He spent a lot of hours in this, and it's actually proved to be difficult to bring all 3 of these things together and try not to miss any of the details that go into a plan like this for an area like this. So we appreciate Jim Olin and his team and Vince Romanelli. We're happy to answer any questions you have. Basically, it's pretty straightforward from our perspective. It's just big and complicated.
So Lance, you mentioned that the middle piece, that Rogers, is, as that gets incorporated, can you just explain why it's an A1 plan mixed unit?
It's currently zoned A1.
Okay.
And we just kept the underlying zoning.
Instead of like bring it under an R2 or something like that?
The underlying zoning really has no bearing, as the zoning text on the overlay supersedes any of that.
Okay.
It'd be consistent with the Terra Alta piece.
Now, will this be under the new mailbox, group mailbox type stuff as well?
Unfortunately, yes.
And did you have a breakout as far as how many units you're looking at per the 2 different school systems?
So the Rogers piece and the Stockdale piece are in Olentangy,
Okay.
and the Terra Alta piece is in Delaware. And hopefully after another couple of hearings here, we could just call it all Terra Alta instead of keeping with the confusion. But I don't know the unit counts off the top of my head in each of those.
Stockdale's right around 322, Rogers is 72, and Terra's right around 482. You're at 870 total. It's almost, Stockdale and Terra is about 400 of those.
Okay.
Yep. Just about.
Any other questions for staff? So just to make sure I'm clear, I read through everything and I heard everything you said, and I think I've got it. So Stockdale Farms, which is the bottom piece, really the only change there is the addition of the pool and the community building.
That's correct.
The Robinson property is really the new thing here. That's Rogers property, is the new thing here that's allowing them to tie it all together.
Correct.
And then the change on the Terra Alto property is what again? Just make sure I'm clear.
It's the unit size, the lot
Okay.
size, and here in the clubhouse. and pool.
So really not a lot of changes other than tying it all together.
Yeah, and the sub-area 4 is really about hitting that, market's changed a little bit in
Mhm.
20 year. Move down empty nesters, single family, detached on their own lot unit. And we think the design requirements here still require a high degree of quality. Actually, in a much more specific way than we have with other developments.
And all of the ingresses and egresses are all the same as they've been
Same.
throughout the process for each of these pieces.
That's
Okay.
correct.
The same triggers for
Yep.
road extensions and the like.
Okay, makes sense.
I think at one point there was going to be an entrance off of Pollard on the southern side, but I think as we were going through that, it was just, that's too much of a grade to bring that, so that was the.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah,
Plain back.
Stockdale used to have a bridge over the river in one version of it.
Yeah.
Jeannie Ball remember that, and I see her sitting out there. That was maybe 4 versions ago, I think, at this point.
No more bridges. Okay, that's all I had. Would the applicant like to come forward to the podium? Just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jeff Strong with EMH&T, 5500 New Albany Road, Columbus, Ohio. Here with me is Jim Olin with Vince Romanelli and Sarah Radcliffe with Gephardt Fisher, the attorney. So if you have any other questions, we really don't have anything to add
Okay.
to the staff report, but we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. May not have any.
Okay, that's good too.
Do you have any concerns with the conditions? There's a few more.
Yeah, are you
conditions I
good
can't-
with all the conditions?
The conditions for the zoning, correct, yes.
Okay.
And just a clarification, you asked for the breakdown. Actually, Terra Alt is 476 units, Rogers is 72, and Stockdale 322. That gives you the 87.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I guess we don't have any
Okay.
questions, so
Thank
thank you for coming up for that brief moment. Okay. So now we'll open it up for public comment. Are there any members of the public here this evening who wish to speak on this case? We can't have you all come up at once, so if you guys could approach one at a time to the podium, and then state your name and your address for the record. Do we have a sign-in sheet, Elaine? That might help.
There were no signatures.
Okay, that's fine. We'll do it this way.
My name's Dean Smith. I live at 1631 Berlin Station Road. My questions are, this is the first I've heard of all this going on, but that's beside the point. But the thing is have they ever done a traffic study in that area to tell us what the traffic is going to be once these houses are in? Has there ever been one? I look at this as a safety issue. I worked for the fire department for 41 years. And I can tell you, I've taken a fire truck down Berlin Station. That road, you put more cars on there, you're going to have an accident. Same way of Broadmiller. So this is a safety issue. I hope you've done a traffic pattern study as to what this is going to do to the traffic on every road around it. Pollock, that's a dangerous road. I don't know if you guys drive that every day, but it's a dangerous road. Berlin Station, it's a dangerous road. Go drive it. talk to the firemen, talk to the people who drive the trucks that plow. They'll tell you, they get run off the road. So putting this amount of houses in that area is going to cause problems. This developer, he's gonna build the houses, he's gonna walk away with the money. Is he putting anything in the roads to widen them, to make them safer? And I mean all the way around that whole area that this is going on. You guys need to look at that. Don't just sit here and say, yeah, we're gonna approve this. Look at the safety issues, what this is gonna do to everybody there. I mean, just think of that. I mean, I know development's gonna come, but when it does, be prepared, because your guys, you're the ones that's got everybody's hands in your, everybody's in your hands. Our safety is in your hands.
Absolutely.
So-
I think it's important to note, we've looked at these cases in the past. I'm almost certain we've done traffic studies. Our engineer can speak to that.
To be completely honest, this was before I joined the city, so I'd have to research that. I'm trying to pull files now while you talk to see what I can find.
I can tell you, because I've been here,
Yeah.
multiple traffic studies have been completed. Answer part of your question, all of these developments except the Rogers piece are already in the city and already zoned, with the exception of 6 units of difference, I think we're talking here. So I appreciate your points are valid, and we've looked at those. I understand the growth, and I used to live right down Cheshire Crossing, use Berlin Station Road all the time. So I appreciate there's a lot of growth that's just not, not just what's in the city. There's a lot going on in the county right there. But that's part of what they'll install in terms of infrastructure are roads that will help deal with their traffic, and also, I think, improve the traffic flow generally in the area. Our comprehensive plan, and we've long called for a policy in the city, that Pollock Road remain that scenic road that it kind of is today. I know you refer to it as dangerous, and that's okay, but that has been a position of the city for a long time. Certainly is scenic. And so these plans respect that. Also going on just outside this area is within the city's jurisdiction is the Glen Road corridor, pretty major north-south road, and part of our plans are to, it kind of stops in the middle of a field right now. Part of our plans are to bring it up to, well, it's actually Berlin Station Road, since it makes the right-hand turns there, to at least connect it to the road network there, the new high school and these developments and county developments going in. That will allow traffic to go down the parkway of Berlin, or Glen Road, that's been designed to handle that traffic, get out to the traffic lights that are now in place on 23.
Wow.
So yes, is the answer to traffic
Yeah,
study.
definitely. I looked it up. We have a traffic impact study for both Terra Alta and Stockdale Farms. The Terra Alta one was amended in 2018 to take into consideration the Rogers piece. So yes, this has been studied and looked at. Pollock Road goes in and out of jurisdiction between the city and the county. Berlin Station is primarily all county.
You also asked about help with funding improvements, and there's $1,000 per building.
That's for the city. Now, they'll be doing a lot of improvements, already have done a lot of improvements along, in terms of repair on Pollock Road, as utilities go in with more to go. Some improvements noted in those traffic studies along the Berlin Station. A lot of this development doesn't have a lot of frontage on Berlin, but that's all this coordinated with county engineer as well, because we're at the boundaries of the jurisdiction. And the last change to Stockdale actually was fairly major, dealing with some transportation issues around that portion of Bromiller Road, and including the roundabout, which would be a safer intersection, and it'll look prettier and all that stuff. But it addresses some of those transportation issues around Bromiller Road as well.
Yes. And there is to be resurfacing of Pollock Road by the developer for a segment in which they did work previously a couple years ago. And I understand that the township is coming through and doing a striping project. So you'd have to check with the county on what the limits of that is, but they are working on some improvements there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public here to speak on this case or comment on this case tonight? please approach the podium and please give your name and your address for the record.
Yeah, my name's Scott Dodge, and I live there on 922 Pollock Road. I'm not real good at public speaking, but since Terra Alta was put in, when they first started cutting it in, I've walked that whole division because I walk my dog, or my dog walks me, one of the two. And I am very impressed at the way I have watched and got pictures of it being developed, and I'm very impressed the way that it's turned out. It's a really nice development. I know a little bit about utilities because I work for the city. I'm not on the clock now. I work for the backflow department. But I've watched everything go into utilities and stuff, and I've been around a lot of construction. Like I said, I'm very impressed the way it's gone in, the way it looks, and it just really looks nice. My concern is, like the gentleman that spoke before me about the traffic on Pollock Road there. And I can tell you a lot of times that curve coming out of Terra Alta there, it looks like they've gone through and cut a lot of the trees back so you can see, which I'm thankful for, whoever did that, you can see cars coming around the curve there. But my concern is also with the traffic. I've noticed quite a bit of traffic has picked up on Pollock Road. But I understand its development, and I'm grateful for that. You know, everything's been done in a good manner. Is there any way, and you've probably looked, is there any way of putting a bike path or proposed bike path down Pollock Road there in the future?
That's a good question. We have looked at that, and in keeping with the idea of keeping Pollock Road scenic, and also parts of it, you know, the grade goes right down to the river, parts of it near Terra Alta, you have more room to get down to the river. Really preclude putting a path directly on Pollock, but the city's longer-term plan with respect to greenways and bicycle ways is to make a greenway corridor up the river. This development would deed over quite a bit of acreage along the river towards that purpose. And the longer-term plan is we have a bike path. If you go just off downtown, we have a bike path along the river to eventually connect those all up along the river. Okay. This would be part of that. So there would be, it's not right on Pollock, but it's right next to Pollock, next to the river where it's scenic to ride, and that's pretty normal. I mean, if you go from Powell down to Columbus, it goes along the Olentangy River, there's the bike path. So it's kind of a continuation of that.
Okay. That was just some thoughts I had. I know that they
Good
ran
question.
that forced main down there on the other side, and I thought there would be a perfect time to be putting that bike path in over there, but it's already in. So
Well, that required a lot of easements and
Yeah.
people's yards and
yes,
stuff like that. So.
yeah, I agree. But that was my question about the traffic. Like I say, you always get somebody comes up and wants to complain about stuff, and I'm a little bit different. I'm grateful for what's gone in there and the way it looks. And I've met Marty Savko a few times, did the development up there, and real nice gentleman, but I've been impressed with the whole thing, and it's just beautiful. When you turn in Terra Alta, and it's been something for me since when it first started, just getting out and walking, which I really enjoy the trees and stuff, and excited about finding out about the other piece down by the river, 24, 25 acres.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
And then the park's going in right up the road there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Preservation Parks now has acquired that big piece just to the north of this development. And so where you see some of the bike paths in this development, they've been coordinated with Preservation Parks planning so that you can hook right into that
So they
parkland area.
Oh, super.
So in terms of bike paths and connection of the paths, to your point earlier, that's been accounted for as well. But that would be a nice amenity for everybody in this area, the Preservation Parks piece, including this development.
Last question on Pollock Road, they did, because basically I'm in Delaware Township where we live. Pollock Road, they redid here a couple years back, and they did a nice job on it when they did it. So, and that's why I was wondering, is there any future developments on Pollock to widen that road any at all, or not, with all the traffic?
And again, the city's approach to Pollock would be to leave it as a scenic road. There's a lot of geometric reasons to do that, but it's also been a policy of the city to leave it as a scenic road, contained in our comprehensive plan for almost 20 years now, and really going back before that. But the idea is to get traffic going towards, obviously, 23, and then some of the arterials like Glen Parkway that are not fully built yet, but are getting built as development happens, so.
Any chance of getting like any more road signs along there, maybe speed signs or slow down or anything like that would help? I don't know, just a suggestion on something like that with the traffic picks up.
I
That's it.
try not to mess with the engineers and their signs, so I let them.
Hey,
I'll look into it.
thank everybody for allowing me to speak and having the meeting.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other members of the public here this evening who wish to speak on this? If you could just come up to the podium and give your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Roger Plummer, 2505 Stratford Road. It's just kind of a quick question. I was curious as to the time frame of when this would all be built out. Is it like 5 years, 8 years?
I think in here it said it was over a 12-year span that this would all be built out. Is that correct? In the,
I don't know, at the rate we're doing permits in
yeah, that's true.
Central Ohio, I don't know, maybe next year they'll be all done, is that right? He'd probably like that, it'd be more efficient for him. We can have developers answer that for you.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, maybe you could answer, are you just going to start developing the whole thing, or are you going to do like Terra Alton and work south? That was it, just those two questions.
We can have the applicant back up to answer that.
They started Terra Alta already, so I think the idea would be they do maybe start in some of Stockdale here as well. They can answer.
We'll take all the questions for the developer and just bring them back up at the end to add the clarifications. Are there any other members of the public here this evening who wish to speak on this particular case? Oh, I see a hand back there. If you could just come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Rick Konkoleski. I live in Delaware now, but I'm moving to Terra Alta in 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
So it's really nice up there.
Do you have a street address we can have for the record?
Right now it's 339 Braxton,
Thank you.
but I'll be on Casino Court up there 3 weeks from this Saturday. But anyway, my question is traffic related to 23 and Pollock Road. It's really tough to make a left. You know, and my wife didn't even want to move up there because she was so worried about it. I tried to tell her, go right, go turn around up on Meeker Way. But you shouldn't really have to do that. And when you get all these homes built, there's going to have to be something done. You know, Pollock Road is a beautiful street and road. You got to be careful. But 23, you're going to have to go to work. You know, go to Riverside Hospital where my wife works, or I work down 23. Is there any plans for making any changes there?
There are, again, the longer-term plan is to get traffic going to those arterials just to the east of here and down to the new and safe intersections with lights at 23 and Glen and Ohio Health Boulevard. I think if you kind of zoom out and you can picture the traffic moving that way, it makes some sense.
Yeah, but you live in Terra Alta.
Long-term, I think the Ohio Department of Transportation plan is to limit the access at Pollock and 23 for some of the reasons you're talking about right now. And part of that may include also kind of a frontage road or backage road, if you like, kind of along there that would get to a planned ODOT signal along 23. Again, that's development dependent and in the future, but and that's part of the reason to make sure that Terra Alta Drive comes out to Berlin Station Road within a certain period of time, and some of the improvements are done relative to Stockdale, so that of course, this is not going to all build right at one time. It's going to take a number of years to build out all of these homes. So it's not like all the traffic comes all at once. But that traffic would then be able to work its way down, really as it does today, throughout our subdivisions, even county subdivisions, down primarily Glen, but also Berlin, Bromiller to US 23 lights. So I don't know if you have anything to
I
add.
concur.
Yeah, I mean, that'd help when Glen Parkway's open and all that, but
Yeah.
for the time being.
I understand right now, Mega Life of Pollock 23 is, I would go back way right now.
Yeah. And my wife's afraid to go to that way.
Which you
Because it's so
can.
tight. Yeah. So you gotta go, best way you can, go
Yeah.
down Pollock. If you have to make a right to go south in the future, you have to do it. But-
That's a little bit, you got some old county roads, you have some new city roads, you're kind of at
Yeah.
the border here.
Yeah. But another, that's great about the developer, in that new section, this is like another subject, the lots are gonna be a lot smaller, I see the square footage is gonna be less. Most of the homes now up there are over 400,000, and, like, for me, that's a lot of money. And I'm afraid when you go to making things smaller, and there's gonna be clusters of condos, what kind of price range, if they can answer that, I'd be appreciative.
They can answer that, and I can answer from a broader perspective. The smaller lots are really, we see the quality and we see the transfers, and those even within city developments are significant, they're expensive. In part, we have a nationwide housing affordability, attainability issue going on right now. We have our portion of that here in the city of Delaware, and the more expensive we make them, the less we address the attainability issue. So it's kind of, that to balance. But also the market has changed a lot. You have 70 million baby boomers, and they're looking for what the developer market is calling move down empty nester housing.
Yeah.
Basically boomers that are moving out of the big house and looking for a very nice house that probably costs a lot, but has less to maintain.
Yeah, you see that everywhere.
And so that's a nationwide thing going on, and when you have that much demographic, that moves market. On the other end of the spectrum, you get the millennials that are starting later, but they're starting to really buy homes now as well, and in part, these aren't really going to be a starter home for millennial, so to speak, but could be, I suppose. But I think at the price point that they're talking about, and Jim will certainly talk to you a little bit about that, I think you're going to be pleased. The other thing is that you've been through probably subdivisions where it's all one builder, it's 400 homes, everybody wants the model, right? It's whether you put tan siding on it or white siding and the garage on the left or the right, but it's kind of all the same. And so in a way, this diversifies the product and gives you, when you go to sell your house one day, you're not going to have as much competition as you would have had up here. You're going to have a more unique lot, or what you're going to have a beautiful lot where you said you're going to buy, my opinion. They're all beautiful lots, but the condominium pieces are exactly the same as what was originally approved and what you've already bought into.
Okay.
We don't know the final layout of those and exactly what they look like, because that will come with future phases and development.
Well, thanks. The housing market's good. I sold my house in a day. I live off-
Well, you did better than I did when I sold mine.
Yeah, so, all right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very
Good
much.
question.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak on this particular case? Sure, come on up. When you reach the microphone, just state your name and your address for the record.
I'm Justin Brenner. I live at 348 Pacino Road, so I actually live in Terra Alta now. Most of my questions have been addressed. I guess primarily just had one follow-up to the gentleman before me for the developer, and it was in regard to the number of lots based on the changes for the subplot north of Terra Alta Drive, and I just wanted some elaboration on that.
So then, I'm sorry, the number of lots based on the changes in Terra Alta?
Yeah,
And so
north of the curve in that Terra Alta part. I believe that was outlined. I just couldn't figure out the difference based on the documents. That's all I have.
Okay. Are there any other members of the public who wish to comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll have the applicant back up just to answer a couple of questions, and I think that will round that out.
Dave, while they're coming up, can you just address since these are amended preliminary plans and plats, that for each of these phases, and they could be a ton of them to get this many homes in, all of those would require final through here and city council and that kind of process?
Yeah, exactly right, Commissioner. Of course, Phase 1 of Terra Alta obviously is final, and they're building.
Right.
Nothing else is constructing at this time. But all the sub-areas that you see are broken down also into sub-phases, and they would come forward with final development plans and plats that we would test to see if they were in accordance with these preliminaries. What also happens is that the engineers have done a ton of work already, but they would sharpen their pencils and do final engineering on those final sections as they come forward.
Okay. All right. So the questions that were asked, I know you guys heard them, but just to repeat them for the record, was the time span of the development for the overall development and kind of your directional plan in terms of how you look to develop that area? I think as much color as you can give around that.
Jim Olin, 148 West Rock Road, Westerville, with Romanelli and Hughes. One of the things that we did in terms of bringing this whole site back was to create diversity in product. And that was, it started with the need for the move down empty nester, we'll call it, and that kind of was a big focus for us in the front corridor. So as we look through this and look through the site, our objective was to continue from west towards east on the Terra Alta plan. You'd start off with additional move down empty nester in that northern corridor, and then you jump into your single family homes as you move further west. As far as Stockdale goes, we're going to start from Stockdale and we're going to work our way up and meet at the, quote, what we'll call the Rogers site now.
Okay.
So that's kind of our phasing schedule. Timeframe wise, I sure hope it doesn't take 12 years.
I thought I saw that somewhere in this.
It does. It's
Yeah.
we did put that as a end date, but I think with, especially the way the market is, with what we were able to do with staff in terms of working on the different architecture, the different styles of homes that we're putting in here, we'll have a lot of different market penetrations that we can run simultaneously. So I think it'll be less than 10 years.
Okay. And then there was another question around price range, but I know that can be tough because there's so many different types of units within the development right now.
I think one of the things, and you know, Roger hit it well, the average is over $400,000 for a move down empty nester ranch in Terra Alta. What we've done is we've tried to create just a different opportunity a little bit north. It'll be maintained HOA, so it'll cover the sidewalks and driveways and landscaping and give them an opportunity to be a true move down empty nester product. While we're requiring ranches in the southern sector, this will be a true move down empty nester feel for the community itself, which is what we did there.
And I think the last question was sub-area 4 and the number of lots now versus what it was previously.
So I'm going to answer that question, but I want to explain a little bit.
Sure.
So the original plan, I believe, had 63 lots. The current plan has 92 in that sub-area. You have to understand that the original Terra Alta had 483 units total, 316 single-family, 167 condominiums. The new Terra Alta plan by itself has 476 units, so it actually has less units, but it has 340 single-family and only 135 condominiums. So what we've done is kind of move that to more of a single-family empty nester product and remove condominiums because of that. So that's kind of how the new layout works. But overall, the entire layout actually has less units than we originally got approved for this city.
That makes sense. Thank you for the clarification. I think that's helpful.
Sure.
And that's all I had in terms of open questions for the applicant.
That's all I wrote down.
Okay. All right. Does the commission have any additional questions for the applicant or for staff? All right, seeing none, what's the wish of the planning commission?
I'll move to approve case 2020-0258 with all staff recommendations.
Motion by Mr. Badger,
Second.
second by Mr. Volnek.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Prahl?
Yes.
Mr. Volnek?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
Move to approve 2020-0259 with all staff recommendations.
Motion by Mr. Badger,
Second.
second by Mr. Volnek.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Prahl?
Yes.
Mr. Volnek?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
Move to approve item 2020-0260 with all staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Badger, second by Mr. Volnek.
I thought we were only voting on the rezoning, correct? Now we're doing the redevelopment, right? Doing that right?
Yeah.
Can I make a clarification on a couple of staff comments before we do that? Is that okay?
Sure. Wish you would have done that sooner.
You can at your peril, Jeff. I think we were getting ready to approve it.
I just want to, it's really not.
What do you got?
Just some explanation. Couple things is, one is, item A, we will certainly work with staff to try to eliminate path in front of the housing. That may be difficult in certain areas. I want you to understand that path, even through the open spaces, in which Terra Alta follows an alignment of sanitary sewer, and the reason we did that is to minimize the amount of tree removal and so forth. So we're very cognizant in this layout, not only to make the layout work, get the bike path in there, but also the tree removal process in the open space. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
And I appreciate that. I think Jim and I talked a little bit on that. We're not, don't think any of us want to have a pathway in the front as opposed to a sidewalk in the front of somebody's home, but there are probably some things we can do, like have a little bit wider sidewalk as a concrete sidewalk in front of their home, and it would still be the bike path, but that would be sort of a normal maintenance for the homeowner and not, kind of look like a landing strip in their front yard as well, but it would serve the purpose. Yeah, we do have some examples. I think Jim was amenable to that approach. If you can get it not in their front yard, that'd be great.
I think 8 would be sufficiently worded, though, to
It
address
is.
that, since
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just talking
it is.
about
And I
versus
just
amending the
wanted to
condition.
state that comment. Item 19 in the recommendation, I assume that we are referring to sub-area 3. Is that correct? I just want to make that clarification.
Help me out here, Lance.
I believe it is, Lance. There's a retention pond along in
Yes.
sub-area 3. Okay, I just want to clarify that. And then one other clarification is item 27, is that obviously we're going to preserve the streams to the best of our ability, but that is subject to obviously stream crossings and infrastructure. And we have to get this approved through the Ohio EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers, so we'll go through that approval process. But I just want to say, there are places where we're going to have to cross streams, potentially fill them because of street crossings, as well as some infrastructure issues. But we'll go through the proper channels in doing that.
We
Just wanted to
understand.
make that clarification. That's it.
So we're good on all the clarifications then, David, from your perspective?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, great. Appreciate you bringing it up if there was some unease there. Okay, so going back, we're on 2020-02- or 0260.
Correct.
We had a motion. We had a motion by Mr. Badger and a second by Mr. Volnek. Okay. Roll.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Prahl?
Yes.
Mr. Volnek?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle? Yes. Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
Okay, I move to approve item 2020-0261, too many zeros in there, with all staff recommendations.
Motion by Mr. Badger,
Second.
second by Mr. Volnek.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Prahl?
Yes.
Mr. Volnek?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle? Yes. Chairman Simpson?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. First reading will be at the next city council meeting on
Monday, the 9th?
the 9th.
And then we'll set the public hearing for the following council.
Correct.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Jim has that one too. He starts rumbling when people get out. They all left.
Scared of, trying to get my paperwork written down.
All right, moving on to the next item under regular business. Could the clerk please read item B into the record?
Item B, case 2020-0225, a request by Skilkin Gold Real Estate Development for approval of a combined preliminary and final development plan for Sheets located at 700 Sunbury Road on property zone B3 Community Business District and B4 General Business District on approximately 4.6 acres.
The subject site's southwest corner of Sunbury Mill Run Crossing. The frontage of the site, approximately the first 350 feet is zone B4, and the rear portion from there on is south is B3. That's important. B4 allows a gas station, drive-through, and restaurant as proposed. The entire site is within the B4 area, the use itself. Out there today existing, you have two buildings, Delaware Marine and the former tobacco shop, and an outbuilding. Those will be raised, which will become one lot. And,
Talk a little bit louder into the microphone.
okay.
Sorry.
It'd be a single lot. They're proposing about a 6,000 square foot building. It'd be a gas station, restaurant, and a drive-through on the site. Engineering's reviewing the final engineering plans as we speak. The development would have an access point on Sunbury Road, a right-in, right-out on Sunbury Road on the western portion of the site. The curb cut that's existing out here on the eastern portion of the site would be eliminated. Second access point would be a full movement curb cut on Mill Run Crossing into the site. Also, there'd be a backage road that they would initiate construction of to their property line, and that would access the property to the west and the existing property to the west and the vacant property further west, and hopefully that will open up those sites for development, and those would be, and the extension of that road would be developer driven at this point. From a pedestrian connectivity perspective, a bike path is required along Sunbury Road. The city is in the process of preparing the Point project, and the bike path will be within the project scope of the Point. So staff has just recommended that they dedicate the appropriate right-of-way along Sunbury Road and grade that appropriately for the bike path, as it will be constructed during the Point project. Also along Mill Run Crossing, our bicycle master plan identifies a bike path along Mill Run Crossing. Today, the curb cut south, there's an existing path that extends further south. North of the curb cut is a sidewalk. Staff recommends that they install a bike path from the curb cut north and be consistent with our bicycle, the adopted bicycle and pedestrian master plan. Also on the backage road, the extension of the backage road, a sidewalk would be required on one side of the future road, and that would be determined by our engineers as we start approving the plans for that road. The site configuration itself, the building would be located in the center of the site. Between the building and the road would be the canopy for the gas station. The drive-through would be, the actual drive-through window would be on the southern portion of the site, and the drive-through backup lane and the like, security lane would be on the western portion of the site. Also, there would be a dumpster in south of the building and a detention basin south of the building. And there would be 47 parking spaces, which is more than enough for the gas station, restaurant, and drive-through on the site. I think 31 is actually required. Tree removal replacement, they're eliminating, I think, 18 caliper inches of trees, and they're installing about 30 caliper inches above and beyond the required street trees and shade trees that would be required on the site. There are 7 street trees required along Sunbury Road. Instead of installing them and taking them out when the Point project moves forward. We requested they put $525 in lieu of planting those trees. And also, there will be 4 trees required along Mill Run Crossing. There's existing trees out there now, but they're a shortfall of 4 currently. The signage of the development, there'd be signage on, there'd have building signage, there'd have canopy signage on the north and east portions of the canopy, and there'd be a ground sign at the intersection of Sunbury Road and Mill Run Crossing. This is the proposed ground sign. It has the limestone base that's required, and it'd be about 9 foot tall with a pricer on. That achieves compliance with our code. The canopy itself would have a sign on under the canopy on the north elevation and one on the east elevation. That's consistent with our typical requirements for a gas station. And you have your typical drive-through signage on the western portion of the site and where the order menu is. From a lighting perspective, they're proposing 19 light poles throughout the site. They're proposing building wall pack signage and under the canopy signage, and that would have to be reviewed and approved by the city to ensure it meets all our illumination standards. The building itself, very nice building. It's mostly brick. We have some limestone wainscoting. Staff recommends it be Delaware blue vein. The entrance, this is the north elevation facing Sunbury Road. It'd have an entrance on the north elevation and also the east elevation. And that'd be your typical aluminum storefront doors and windows, and you have a little pitched standing seam roof. You'd have canvas awnings over the windows. The mechanical equipment would be screened by a fence on the roof itself. And there'd be also an outdoor seating area along the northern and eastern portions of the site. So it is a restaurant and some room for seating. This is the south elevation. You see the 2 pickup windows for the drive-through, and the western elevation would also have an entrance and also have some area for storage of petroleum. They also have on the north elevations an area for ice and the like. Staff recommends approval with 19 conditions. On condition 13, there's a typo. Instead of ground sign, I should say on the building sign. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, just say Sheetz, there's been a lot of publicity around Sheetz coming into Central Ohio, and thankful they took a look at our community as well. It speaks highly of our community and of Sheetz' decision-making process, I might say, for looking at our community. But this site has obviously been the old marina that's been largely vacant here. It's on an active transportation corridor. These uses tend to survive by capturing the traffic that passes by them, as the commission is well aware. And I think Frank Petrozello and Sarah and their team have been good to work with from the city perspective, and we appreciate their help. Frank has worked in the city for many years, including on the Westfield Shopping Center. So we appreciated reconnecting with Frank and his good work with Sheetz and the corporation to, I think, Delaware-ize the look and the design of this building, while still maintaining what they need to achieve for their business. So we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
2 questions. What is the city's, what's the reason for not planting the street trees along 36, 37 in front? Why wouldn't we?
It's the same as not having the bike path going along 36, 37. Those would be the Point project comes all the way back to the 529 intersection. And so to have those go in now with, of course, we don't let a project,
521, isn't it?
It's 521.
521.
Okay, wait a minute here.
That took me back to, I think that's a state route over by Oxford. That took me back a ways. Sorry about that.
Nicely done.
Senior moment. 521. In any case, part of that project is putting in a pedestrian connection along that corridor. And so what we don't know all of the engineering for that yet, but there's a degree of likelihood that if they were to put this in, that project may come in and just tear it out and put it in a slightly different location, and that's sort of foolish. Plus, we also need to acquire easements for that project, and so this project would essentially, we're getting the easement, I will get the easement from them for the bike path. It's the same thing with the street trees.
Then why can't we just delay putting in the trees until after that's done and still get the trees put in by them?
Oh, they're going to make a payment in lieu of putting in the trees, which we will use to put the trees in with that project.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
All right, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
that. And then the other thing I don't quite understand, in the front, there would be 7 trees, but then along the longer leg of that, only 4. Is there a
There's existing
difference
trees there
in
now.
the spacing of the trees?
No, there's existing trees along Mill Run Crossing now. 4 more will meet our requirements.
Okay, so there are existing trees there already, we're just gonna fill in the areas.
Right.
All right, answer my question.
I don't have a remedy for this one or any inkling that this one could be solved, but the right-in, right-out, 2 questions related to that. One, is the hatched-out area going to be curved, or is it going to be like a pavement marking type right-in, right-out? And then that right-out, that's a pretty tight space there from the right-out to that right lane. Most people are not going to go right out to then just circle right back down and go to Mill Crossing. They're going to, or Mill Run, excuse me. They're going to have to shoot across that lane into the through lane. Just concerned that there might be issues with that. But I don't know how you can quite remedy that one, because that's a pretty tight space there.
Yeah, that's a respectable concern. I can understand that. In practice, it is already happening over at the outlet malls.
Right.
So it is a potential concern. There's always the possibility that if accidents begin happening and increasing, that it would become a ride-in only.
Okay.
We would have to see and cross that when we get there.
Absolutely. Okay.
And have to work with the property owner at that time, but that's the ability that we have as the city. Good concern. The idea is that it will be a physical median, but we need to make sure that the fire truck has full access to get into that. So we will cross that bridge also when we get there.
See, that wasn't me bringing in the right-hand or right-out.
No, but it was coming. I know it was coming.
You guys must have talked. Jim is usually Mr. Right-in, right-out.
It's a great traffic condition. I just had that concern there, because it could happen if somebody wants to eagerly go home and then they're coming out.
Yeah.
It's a concern.
It's okay. I had that written down as well, Jim, just in case.
Can't fix stupid.
Keeps us honest.
Does keep us honest. Any other questions for staff? So the only thing I had, which is very minor in my opinion, I had a couple things. One's more for the applicant, one's more for you guys. Are we really okay with the ice machines being in front? Seems like there's plenty of space on the side that we could move those ice machines in lieu of trying to get them to match a building color. Is there a reason that you guys have already talked through with the applicant?
We did talk about putting those on the side of the building, and that would be the western side of the building. And that would be still my preference, but if you look at the floor plans, there are doors and other things in that location, but they may be able to accommodate that. But yeah, we did discuss it.
Well, then I guess we'll go ahead and have the applicant come up. And if you could just please state your names and address for the record once you reach the microphone.
Hello, Sarah Gold, and I'm at 82 South Ardmore in Bexley, Ohio.
Frank Petrozello, I think the old guy here, is that what you said, David?
I didn't say that.
I'm the president of Development for Skilk and Gold. 4270 Morris Road, Columbus, Ohio. I will say that David and I had darker hair when we first, did projects, but nevertheless.
You still have some hair.
Yeah, and I won't say what I normally say about that, so, because I don't want to offend anyone. But anyway, I do have hair, yes, thank you. But it's probably been 20 years, I think, or more. Yeah, more than that. We're on about our 6th or 7th project here in Delaware. Our last one being the famous fuel station at Stratford, of which I think I get, to this day, I get compliments on that project. I joke that it looks like that one can only purchase hay there, however.
Looks great.
So anyway, we are very pleased to be here tonight representing Sheetz. We have our full development team here with us. We've got with Sheetz Aaron Hensley over here, and he is our real estate guy, our senior site selector for Central Ohio. He's been working with us hand in hand on all of these sites. We have our civil engineer, which is Andrew Gardner with Bird and Bull, back over here on my side, and his associate Joshua Miller. And we also have our intrepid traffic engineer with Carpenter Marty, Drew Laurent, with us tonight. So, did I miss anybody? So the Brain Trust is here if there are any specific questions about any of that. I want to say that we have continued to have good experience here. Ms. newly minted Ms. Fortman has been great. David is okay. Lance is great, and Jordan has been a great addition to the team. We have no problem with any of the with all of the stipulations, the conditions that Lance has put together. We've reviewed them internally with our engineers, with our client, and sorry, I don't have anything to fight about with regard to any of that. The question about the ice machines. Our concern is vision, and we don't keep them locked. They're sort of on an honor basis. What staff had recommended is that we change the color of them to match the building, and that's what we would propose to do. I think that they're simple rectangular shapes and would essentially minimize their impact on the street. So we would like to just go with staff's recommendation on that. Other than that, we are all here to answer questions. We could also talk to you about Sheetz if you're interested, but I don't want to belabor it because there may be Sheetz freaks amongst you who know all about it.
We won't name names.
What's that?
We won't name any names.
You're not going to name any names, okay. But we know that it can be a very loyal vocal group that like Sheetz, and I don't think we have any use of that type in Central Ohio that has that kind of passion associated with it, with its customers. And so we're Sheetz freaks in training, Sarah and myself, but we are gaining it through osmosis. So that's what we have.
I know nothing about Sheetz, so can you give me?
Yes, I will.
That's all I know.
I was
Just
waiting
give me
for
a
someone
short
to ask.
version
I
of
was
it.
waiting for someone to ask. Okay. Fuel stations. We get a little upset when we are referred to as a fuel station. And the reason, not that we don't sell fuel, we do, obviously. But so does Kroger, and so does, Walmart, and so does everybody. The important thing is that we
started 50 years ago or whatever it was, as dairy farmers. We have come from the food industry. We have come from selling groceries and come from the restaurant business. We've added fuel as a service to our customers, just like Kroger and others have added fuel. We do not, our DNA is not in a drill rig in Texas. Our DNA is in a pasture in Pennsylvania. So it's clearly a sort of a different mindset that has run through to today. Everyone in the C-suite of Sheetz has the last name of Sheetz. There are 600 or so stores. They are largely situated in Pennsylvania and in the surrounding states around Pennsylvania. The interesting thing about them is that we're a restaurant. We have indoor dining. So it's not, I tell people, this is not a Speedway with wrapped plastic sandwiches, okay? We have a full staff, full kitchen staff, and probably 8 to 10 or more employees on the property working, especially during daytime business hours. We do have a drive-through. Our drive-through, though, is not like a McDonald's drive-through. McDonald's does 70% or so of their business through their drive-through. We do about 10% of our business through a drive-through. We need to have a drive-through because, again, like the fuel, it's a convenience to our customers, but also the fuel does an interesting thing. People come to get fuel, they got to get out of their car. So they will walk into the shop, whereas in a McDonald's, you can just go through the drive-through and get away. The other thing is our food is made to order. It's not coming from this bin with a shelf and you pull it out and plop it on the bun. You know, our menu is varied. Pizza, Mexican entrees, subs, burgers, very, very many different things. And it's done through either the app, like you can do Starbucks, and you can order what you will, and then it transmits that to the store, and when you get there, you can pick up your food. Or in the drive-through, there are touch screen. There's a touch screen, so there's no squawk boxes. I mean, there is a communication in case you run into trouble, but basically it's a touchscreen menu, and you can choose all your various different combinations, and it's probably like ordering a car. There's like 6 billion combinations or whatever that you can order, but that's the way it needs to be, a touchscreen and not not through humans because it's too complicated. So the process takes a little more time because it's done made to order. So consequently, you're not going to wait, you know, that long for your food. So that keeps our traffic through the drive-through down, but it also makes it a simpler process for us to provide food. Same way inside. It's actually more of a European system where you order, where you decide what you want, you go and pay for it, and then when you pay for it, the POS sends it to the kitchen, and then it's made. So when you come in, there's a bank of 4 touch screens, just like iPads, and you do the same thing. You order however you will, it spits out a ticket, the ticket has all the information coded in that, and then it gets scanned by the register, you pay, and then you wait until they call your number. It's not a convenience store in the sense of buying little cans of Campbell's soup and that cost too much and that sort of thing. It's very much a restaurant and very much, you know, the typical beverages and snacks and that sort of thing. We have pictures of the interiors if you'd like to see them, but these are very contemporary, open ceilings. Our windows are real windows. You can look inside, you can see outside, cloth awnings. It's a much more friendly, human kind of place that, yes, happens to have fuel pumps out in front of it. So, does that help?
Yeah, so there's no wait staff, you get your food and then you take it to the table.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So you're eating on paper plates that are just, or
Yes.
plates, okay.
Yes, exactly.
I've got a better feel for it now.
Yeah, there are about 30 seats.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
it's an interesting concept, I think.
Okay, thank you.
On this site, would there be any type of water filling station or a dump station? RV?
I do not know. Aaron?
Good, okay,
I guess not.
good, thank you. And where, would there be a air hose type of thing, where would the air would be located at?
Is it located, guys? Should be. And can you tell us where? This is Andrew with Bird and Bull.
Yeah, it's just north of.
Would you please go up to the screen and point to it? Thank you.
Currently, I think we're showing the air location right up in this location up here.
Just off to the side of the tanks.
Just, right here.
Yeah.
Tucked in right here.
That recess area there is where the tanks are buried, the tank field is.
We'll have it tucked in right there in the corner, and the fuel tanks are in the ground.
Yep. Could I just get your name and address for the
I'm sorry,
record?
Andrew Gardner, 628 Burbank Place, Westerville, Ohio.
Thank you.
He's not trained yet.
It's okay, we'll get him in order.
Yeah,
That works.
yeah.
That's all I had.
Well, I think you answered my only other question, which was, are any of these windows spandrel glass? And obviously, they're not.
No,
So
they are not.
that's all I had. Any other questions for the applicant? Awesome.
But I have one, how many sheets are there in Ohio?
I don't know the exact amount, but it's not a lot. It's maybe 30, 20, 30? 45, yeah. And where they are, they're mostly in northern to northeast of Cleveland, that direction. There's a very large one in Cambridge that has like 12 Tesla charging stations. That's the other thing. Sheets offers their locations to Tesla. Now, not every Sheets obviously has a Tesla charging station, but the one in Cambridge on 70 has, I think, a bank of 12 charging stations. So they're very cognizant of the future of all of that.
Are you thinking about putting one here at all?
What is it, charging station? There are no plans today, but that doesn't mean that Tesla wouldn't be interested at some point and do that, but we have no way of knowing. I do not. They kind of, Elon does what Elon wants to do, okay?
Okay. Well, excellent. Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Are there any members of the public here this evening that wish to comment on this particular case?
Yes.
Oh, I see one
Okay,
right here.
We will make way. Excuse me.
If you could just state your name and your address for the record.
My name is Jim Frisch. I live at 202 Cotswold Drive here in Delaware. And I'm the president of Frisch Enterprises. Corporate offices are in the basement of the Marathon Station, diagonally across the street. Now, the concern that I have is that you are, it seems everyone's happy with the entrance and egress. And I have strong feelings in opposition to allowing a right-hand turn onto 3637 for the following reason. In order to make a, as you all, probably everyone in the room has been to Oakland Nursery. Probably some of you have been to my facility. And you know of the neighborhood with several hundred homes just out on 521. So there is a fair amount of, or a lot of traffic that turns left onto 521 because of my business, because of Oakland Nursery, and also of the residents that live there. Now, I'd ask how far it is when you can make that right-hand turn to the stoplight. Because the way I see it, to make a left-hand turn, you have to cross the shoulder, 2 lanes of traffic, I don't know what you'd call it, but a striped white area to get into the left-hand turn area. And if government's primary function is to be cognizant of the health, safety, and welfare of their citizens, I don't think that is a safe situation. And they still have an exit, a full-blown exit on whatever that road is to the south. Perhaps someone could answer that question. Or anyone else have a concern? I didn't hear anyone other than where to place an ice machine had any concern of any of this on this project.
Hold on a
He
second.
brought it
I
up.
disagree. We brought that very specific thing up, and we actually talked about that.
Okay, what was your decision?
What did we say on the right in, right out?
I couldn't hear her. She wasn't using the microphone.
Sure, ultimately, at this point in time, it is permitted. The developer is doing a traffic impact study, so that will kind of vet out some of your concerns. But if it is shown, it's demonstrated that there is a safety concern with this right out and accidents are occurring, it is potential that the city can close that right out and make it a right in only. So
Wouldn't it make sense to do that traffic study prior to it?
the traffic
rather than
study,
later?
I
Or
apologize.
why wouldn't that have been a part? There's a traffic brain trust here. Wasn't that a part of the initial thought process? And, you know, certainly everyone that's in the convenience business, like they are, I am, Oakland is, access and egress is critical to
Sure.
allow your customers to get in.
We
My
are-
question would be, why wouldn't that study be done prior to allowing it?
We are doing the study now, the traffic impact study.
Who does that?
Who does that? The developer is responsible for doing it. They have an engineer.
Will that be done prior to the development?
We will not approve the development plan until that traffic impact study
Oh,
is
okay.
completed.
How far is
Jim, the only thing I'd say, listening to your concern about someone coming out of the right out and trying to get all the way in the left lane, just as a practical matter, if I'm a user, if I go to visit Sheets, and I want to go, I live in Kensington, and I want to go back, or I want to go over to Dairy Queen and get my ice cream afterwards, or whatever, I wouldn't do that.
Well, I understand, but
I don't think, let me finish. I don't think most people would. I think, you know, unless it happens to be the rare, very low traffic moment in that corridor.
Well,
Which we all know it isn't, but I think you'd come back out, that's part of the point on having a full cut on Mill Run Crossing.
I
Where you
understand
come
that.
out and just go straight across the intersection there.
But from, you know, you're anticipating people will always use logic. And
I get it.
I don't, and as a matter of fact, I have a dive-in entrance.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's, they're gonna close that. The proposal is to close that and force all the traffic. Then I have no access on 521, none.
You'll have access from the rear service road, the Biltmore Drive.
Yeah, but not on 521. And the problem with that is that if you force all of that traffic to that area, as opposed to letting people, because it's really convenient to dive in there. You know, you're going slow, you've made your decision if you're going to the Dairy Queen or buy fuel, and that area in my lot is completely open. On the entrance to the service road, you have to cross a lane of traffic, there's no stop sign there, and you have right-hand turn lane, and they only have less than the distance of this room in order to make a decision if they're going straight ahead or coming in. So that'll be a bottleneck.
I understand your concern.
Well, it's a fact. I mean, it's,
I don't dispute that, but I would go with saying that that particular area you're talking about is not part or relevant to this particular.
well,
case.
I understand that. I was just using that as a comparison or an
That's fair.
example.
And I think to our engineer's point, we will look at that if it's a problem, and we'll take the steps to
But
remedy
you're
it.
saying that traffic study will become a part of the planning and approval process prior to final approval?
The results of the traffic impact study will have recommended improvements, and those improvements will be required to be completed by the developer as part of this plan.
Prior to approval of the project?
So Jim, what happens, just the process,
I understand.
what happens is, they'll move through planning commission and go to, final development plan with city council.
I see.
Typically, what
I understand.
happens in, this is a fairly small site by our standards. If city council approves that, one of the conditions in this report is that you have final adherence with a lot of things, one of which is engineering approval.
I understand.
And so after city council, then
So the
they-
engineers will see that?
after city council, they have to finish their site improvement plan and any of our zoning.
So how many
Plans.
more meetings or public?
There'd be one more public meeting at city council, and then it moves into administrative approvals of the plans to finish up
Very well.
the details, and they would have to adhere to anything our engineers say. It's not just sort of what they want to do, they vet that as well. That's kind of a process to tell, so that you kind of see where it fits in.
Sure. I understand.
It's a good question, because people just don't know that process.
Yes, okay. I understand. Any more questions of me? No. Mr. Paul says no. Thank you very much.
What's the Dairy Queen flavor of the month? That's my.
Thank you.
I know you will.
Just state your name and address for the record, please, once you reach the microphone.
I'm the other Jim Frisch. And I am the Dairy Queen franchisee, been sitting on that corner for the last 20 years. And that's kind of hard to believe because we were sitting in the same chair doing this, like they're doing. I'm glad that he brought up, and if there is some concern about the traffic bottleneck. Yes, there is a patch going on as we speak right now. My largest concern about that corner, having been on that corner for 20 years and watched near fatality wrecks, I've seen a friend of mine just the 27th of December get rear-ended on a motorcycle directly in front of the dive-in that was the discussion. I mean, right there, and luckily did not get killed. I have been a customer of Sheetz from Fredericksburg, Virginia, all the way to the ones up in northeastern Ohio. I have been in them, and having a background in the fuel business myself, I don't just own the Dairy Queen, I'm involved in the whole thing. Our businesses rely upon volume in gallonage. An outfit like Sheetz will be working on in the neighborhood of 200,000 gallons a month. Now, you can do some simple math with that. On a 20-gallon tank in a vehicle, how many vehicles that needs to be on that route to make that volume make sense. They're what's called a hypermarketer, they're a low-cost leader, and they will bring in as many cars as they can and need to pay for this beautiful location. And I'll be the first to admit, they are a top-notch operation. They have a really neat business model, and the concern is that right now our infrastructure that we are putting a patch on and doing the best that can be done with the space that we have to allow just our everyday needs from 23 to 71 to make that work. Well, that's going to be completed here this summer, the repaving part, but the completion of the actual fix, where we're going to get one more lane underneath the bottleneck of that bridge, is not going to be completed, as everybody here that's looking at me knows, 2023. So I think that we're putting the cart in front of the horse as to going crazy and building another large business over there. You know, there's going to be signage on 23 to draw customers through town, and you know, this isn't stuff that you guys don't know, and it is hopefully some stuff that these guys are aware of as well. But I don't know if that it's completely been calculated how difficult it's going to be and how much of a mess for our everyday people that are just trying to make a living in our city. So the traffic part of that component of that is of an enormous concern of mine. And I don't think it's been completely thought out, the in and out. I don't want to talk about that anymore, though, so. Oh, and I live on 2465 Horseshoe Road. I didn't say that. So that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public here this evening to comment on this particular case? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for further questions, conversation, or what have you.
I have no other questions.
Chairman Simpson, with respect to the traffic impact, it will be reviewed in the traffic impact study, but if the developer's representative would like to give more feedback or comment on that, if they can at this time, I would defer to them on that.
I think that's fair.
He's more intimate with the data.
If you have questions, yes, otherwise.
I don't have a specific question regarding traffic.
Your public did, don't look at me.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, I guess my only thought here is it, you know, with all the development that's gonna go out there, this is a small piece of it, okay? Traffic, we know what it's gonna be like out there. You know, we're doing the best, the city's doing the best with the point that it can do. I mean, we are limited. We're not going in and just tearing up half the houses on William Street in Central and make everything a 4-lane thoroughfare down through there. It's going to be, it's always going to be a problem. It's going to be less of a problem, okay, than what it was. So I don't, you know, yeah, they're going to add traffic, but not as much as even the stores we just approved out there. They're going to add more traffic. The apartments that we approved not too long ago, they're going to add more traffic. The church is going to add more traffic. You know, Kroger's are going to add more. We knew that when they were built. So, I mean, you know, I just, you know, of course, the right in and right out, yeah, that's a concern, but I think that's, you know, my worst concern is nobody pays any attention to it. But this one here, I think, is going to be planned well, with a lot of thought given to that, going across 3 or 4 lanes. But you can't take this property and say, we'll only have one entrance.
Right.
If that gets blocked, and there's a problem,
Correct.
I don't know what the fire department's gonna do. I mean, there's gonna be, you know, with gasoline and everything else, there's gonna be a problem. So there has to be a second exit. Is there a good one? I don't think there is a good one. But it's, you know, it's, this piece of property is gonna develop this way.
One point, maybe. Lance, could you give me the existing aerial, please? I want to point out that we are greatly improving the situation right now by combining 2 properties. And actually, you can see that there are 2 curb cuts right now. And I believe those, even though there are pork chops painted there, I think those function as full-serve curb cuts today. So we're eliminating, by joining the properties, we're eliminating the one closest to the intersection, and actually we're moving the one to the west as far to the west as we possibly can. So we don't have interest in operating in a bad traffic situation. That's why we spend so much on these very expensive consultants over here. We don't do that just to satisfy Ms. Fortman. We do it to satisfy ourselves also, that we can operate and we can operate efficiently and not be a burden on the traffic system.
How many cars does Sheetz see in a day, any given store?
I don't.
Is there?
It's all in the study.
Okay.
Okay.
They are doing a trip generation, so they're
Gotcha.
using,
Yeah.
you know, required practice studies for their standard practice.
And just to clarify, you're fully aware of the point, as he pointed out.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
You know
Very
all about
much
it, right?
so.
Okay,
We
just
know
making sure.
all about it. Our engineers have spoken with your engineers. There's been this co-engineering going on here.
We put them
Just to
in,
clarify.
we put them in direct contact
Yes.
with the point project engineer
Yes.
so that they can iron out any issues
Very
that
much
would
so.
come up.
Very much so.
I figured you did.
Okay. Any additional questions? What's the wish of this commission?
Make a motion to approve 2020-0225 with all staff recommendations.
Motion by Mr. Volnick, second by Mr. Halter.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Prahl?
Yes.
Mr. Volnick?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Chairman Simpson?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dave, can you speak as to when this will go to council? They had asked that information. prior to the meeting.
So this would be on Monday's council agenda.
But just as a first reading.
As a first reading, we would normally do a presentation with a combined preliminary and final.
We got a long meeting, that's all I'm gonna say.
whatever you'd like.
I defer to the mayor.
say, let's take it, we'll do a full at the next one,
Okay, so,
not the 8th.
so no, you don't need anybody there, we'll just read it. And then at the 23rd meeting, we'll do a presentation and
You're welcome.
in a meeting.
Good evening. All right, moving on to the next item under regular business. Could the clerk please read item C into the record?
Item C, Communities at Glen Ross, Section 16, Case 1, 2020-0205, a request by Pulte Homes for approval of final development plan for the Communities at Glen Ross, Section 16, for 45 single-family lots on 18.21 acres on property zoned R2 PMU, one-family residential district with a planned mixed-use overlay district and located on Canby Drive, Bald Eagle Drive, and Sundial Lane. Case 2, 2020-0206, a request by Pulte Homes for approval of final subdivision plat for the Communities at Glen Ross, Section 16, Part 1, for 36 single-family lots on 14.476 acres on property zoned R2 PMU, one-family residential district with a planned mixed-use overlay district and located on Canby Drive, Bald Eagle Drive, and Sundial Lane. In Case 3, 2020-0207, a request by Pulte Homes for approval of final subdivision plat for the Communities at Glen Ross, Section 16, Part 2, for 9 single-family lots on 3.743 acres on property zoned R2 PMU, one-family residential district with a planned mixed-use overlay district and located on Bald Eagle Drive and Sundial Lane.
Thank you, Elaine. I'll be taking over at this point tonight. Subject property is located on the south side of Cheshire Road, east of Winterbourne Drive. We've got the zoning map that shows that this property is currently zoned R2 PMU, as are the surrounding properties. The properties east across the railroad track are in the township. We've got an aerial showing the property here from a few years back. And here's a breakdown of all the subsections for the remainder of the Communities at Glen Ross. Sections 11, 12, and 15 are highlighted in yellow. These have been approved by Planning Commission and City Council and have all started work. Section 13 is outlined in green lines, which has been approved by Planning Commission and Council, but has yet to start work. Section 16 is highlighted in green. And to point out, per the city engineer, Section 13 is to be constructed prior to Section 16. Otherwise, an off-site improvement plan for stormwater will be required. But our communication between staff and the applicant has indicated that they will be going with Section 16 before 13, which will indicate that they'll be going forth with this off-site stormwater improvement. I'll get into more detail on that in a bit. This subsection here is going to be broken down into two parts. The lot layout for both will require a minimum area of 8,450 square foot lots, 65-foot width, minimum house size of 1,600 square feet for single story, 1,800 square feet for multi-story homes. Here we got part 2 here. Design requirements for both will include a front elevation of 40% natural materials, vinyl siding, a minimum of 0.044 mils, gutters, downspouts, etc., maybe man-made materials, no concrete or split-face block except for basement foundation walls and dimensional shingles. Here we've got a nice illustrated plan here. This subsection has 5 different access points that'll connect this subsection to 15, 17, and 20, which will help provide more connectivity throughout Communities at Glen Ross. Wolfcrest Road and Bald Eagle Drive run north and south through this site, with Sundial Lane connecting them east to west. There is an approximate 3.77 acre area of open space here along Winterbourne. This will be designed to continue the existing theme along Winterbourne Drive. There is also in part 2 of this subsection active space of 0.86 acres. There's a staff condition requiring that a active field will be programmed here on this lot. Due to there being off-state stormwater plan, there's going to be some tree removal here that is outside of the subsection, but as the stormwater plan will be removing these trees, that is part of this section here. This will include 36 qualifying trees that will be removed for off-state stormwater requirements. And the applicant has been great to work with at this point, as there's been a lot of back and forth between staff and the applicant about the sections 11 through 22 tree removal, and they will be providing us a detailed tree removal plan for sections 11 and 22, which will help ensure that not only the current, but the past and future subsections will all be a net positive when it comes to trees. And as always, we'll ensure that this meets Chapter 1168 of the zoning code, as well as the approved development text. There's several conditions spread out through these approvals here, but if there's any specific questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them at this time. Thank you.
I want to know who colors your little pictures, your little stripes and your greens and yellows, and how come those aren't in our packages? We just get to play with black and white.
That's a good comment.
And they're so
I
much
did it for
easier to
these
see.
ones, but I will.
So do
I'll
you
make
color
sure.
them or does Lance color them?
I did it for this one. Lance does it for the other ones.
Well, then, before you make copies, give us the colored copy, like the 12 different phases.
Yeah.
That you showed up, that was so much easier to see than on here. Just a thought for me.
Well, that's a good comment. Thank you, Mary.
I like your colors.
You make the comment as if we don't do those like today. But we could do some of them earlier in these cases.
Well, I'm just saying, these, I'm trying to read those 12 zones and that,
Yeah,
I'm like,
I get it.
and that's so easy.
I get it, yeah.
Marker skills are
Well, it's part of a planning degree, you have to know how to color well, right, Andy?
Just saying.
Lance taught me well.
That's funny.
Sorry.
I can't keep all the sections straight anymore.
Well, one of the, in the staff report, you mentioned that the emergency access drive to Cheshire Road through section 15 shall remain in place until a second access point to Winterbourne is established on the east side, which is proposed in section 18. Can you tell me which of the access points you're talking about? I believe there's actually two that go out to Cheshire currently.
So we'll go back to the section plan here. Section 13 included this stretch of Winterbourne Drive. So with section 16 going in first, you won't have access through here for a fair amount of time. So right now, getting into this section, you'll be coming down here through Winterbourne, coming through this existing road, and 15 before you get into 16, which is only the one access point here. But by keeping in the emergency access up here, that will provide another emergency access point in case, you get a car that gets stuck like right here. But as this gets built out, you've got a multitude of access points throughout.
So it's when that next road connects to Winterbourne, then
Okay.
that can come out.
It appears that section 18 is when that may happen.
When West Wind and East Wind connect, and then it connects through sections that extend up.
Put your pointer on that. Or, no, down there where the road.
It's like the
comes out to
confluence of the
Winterbourne.
stripes and the
Okay.
solid.
Yeah.
So when that goes in.
Okay.
It's just the next section south of this. Then
But
they-
only removing the access point that is east towards the railroad tracks,
Correct.
Just a
correct? Not the
temporary
one,
That's
not
correct.
the other
The one on the
temporary
west is
one.
permanent.
Correct.
Okay.
There's a loop that'll go throughout this development that, when it's all said and done, it will provide excellent, interconnectivity through this subsection. But as we're doing it in phases, that it's good to have that extra emergency point there.
Okay.
Well, I recall with Bob Grudden's development, Winterbourne will go all the way through, that's really the
Right.
airport road.
All in.
Would the applicant like to come forward? Just state your name and your address for the record once you reach the microphone.
Hi, I'm Dave Dozer with Pulte, 475 Metro Place South, Dublin. Brad Holland is the point at EMH&T, but he has the flu, so I told him to stay home.
Thank you.
Yes.
Much appreciated.
So there, I spoke with him earlier today, and there were two conditions which Jordan mentioned about the tree replacement, which Brian Thornton of London Gardens is currently working on with EMH&T, and also there is a new landscape plan for the top lot with the active field. And I think, Jordan, have you received that?
If it was sent today, it was kind of a crazy day, so I haven't seen it
Okay,
yet.
so, but they do have showing the active field, the fencing, and some other comments that you guys had.
Okay.
Other than that, if there's anything else, any questions, I'll be happy to answer what I can.
Sir, can I get your last name? I'm sorry.
It's Dozer, D-O-Z-E-R.
Just like it sounds.
Any questions for the applicant? No? Well, excellent. It doesn't look like there's any members of the public here this evening that wish to speak on this case. All right. Seeing as there are no members of the public who have anything to say about this case, what's the wish of the commission? Or do we have any further questions?
Make a motion, we approve 2020-0205, along with all staff's recommendations and conditions.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Halter, second by Mr. Badger.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Prahl?
Yes.
Mr. Volnick?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
Make a motion, we approve 2020-0206, along with all staff's conditions and recommendations.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Halter and a second by Mr. Badger.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Prahl?
Yes.
Mr. Volnick?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
Make a motion, we approve 2020-0207, along with all staff's conditions and recommendations.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Halter and a second by Mr. Badger.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Prahl?
Yes.
Mr. Volnick?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Chairman Simpson?
Yes. All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next item under regular business. Could the clerk please read item D into the record?
Item D, the Enclave at the Ravines at Olentangy, Case 1, 2020-0236, a request by TNR Properties for approval of a final development plan for Enclave at the Ravines at Olentangy containing 86 single-family attached units and one single-family detached unit on approximately 14.742 acres on property zoned R6 PMU, multifamily residential district with a planned mixed-use overlay district located on the north side of Curve Road and west of Rochdale Run. Case 2, 2020-0237, a request by TNR Properties for approval of a final subdivision plat for Enclave at the Ravines at Olentangy, containing 86 single-family attached units and one single-family detached unit on approximately 14.742 acres on property zoned R6 PMU, multifamily residential district with a planned mixed-use overlay district located on the north side of Curve Road and west of Rockdale Run.
Thank you, Elaine. I'll be continuing. Subject property is located within the ravines of Olentangy, north side of Curve Road, just west of Rockdale Run. The zoning map here gives a good indication of the subject area. The blue outline here indicates the perimeter of this district. The properties to the north of this one highlighted in red here are R3 and R4 PMU. To the east is R4 PMU. And to the south and west are properties located in the township. Here are some images just showing from an aerial view. You've got the property here, and here it is in proximity to the rest of the subsections of this development. And then here's an image of the original map with the subject site highlighted in yellow. But continuing here to the plat, the site is to be serviced by city sanitary and water that are going to be extended to site. The lots number 1 to 17 along Rockdale would be tapped into public water line, with the rest as private. There are a few lots here in this development that are still having some final details being worked out by our engineers and the applicant's engineers to bolster the quality of the basement service. I just wanted to point out that staff does not recommend using injector pumps for these. The roads will have 2 access points to the site and a loop network that'll meet all public street standards as well as fire department requirements. Here's a look at the development plan. The development text permits 90 condo units here on this site. Proposed is 86 attached single-family and 1 detached single-family units. I remembered from last time, in a condo association. The site includes 20 overflow parking spaces, which will be certainly helpful. There are some gang mailboxes here that'll have 4 parking spaces nearby, which will, be helpful for residents, so that way they don't have to walk if they don't want to. They could go park, and they'll have a couple parking spaces there for the mailboxes. I just wanted to thank the developer here for being accommodating to staff. On this plan, they indicated specifically which lots will be allowed to have patios or decks from lessons learned in the Enclave at Adelaide. This is a very similar development. Enclaves at Adelaide's been quite popular. I mean, I get calls a lot on that. It's been fun to watch that get filled up. But there were some problems with decks in relation to easements with that development. So the developer indicating that on this plan is going to be tremendously helpful to me. So thank you personally for that. But I think it'll be helpful to homeowners when purchasing these lots, that they'll have a better idea as to what they're getting with these. And hopefully that just makes life for everyone involved a little easier. We also, in addition to that, have an agreement between EPA, city, and applicant pertaining to monitoring wells. And also, I just wanted to point out the comprehensive landscape plan next here includes street trees and perimeter buffering that'll meet the code requirements and development text. Specifically, the big one with this is buffering along the south here. We have a 6-foot minimum high mound with evergreen trees planted 20 feet on center. The applicant is proposing a mix of pine species to hopefully give it more of a natural look to this. I just wanted to also specifically point out that the plantings will be maintained by the homeowners association, but the mound itself will be allowed by the county engineer to encroach into the right-of-way, but that's only the mound. And if there's any other questions, I got one more slide here, sorry. Proposed building design is going to be very similar to Enclaves at Adelaide. This is just one example here. There will be 2 design options mixed throughout the site. The design options will differ with where the stone will be located. So some of them, the stone will be wrapping around the windows here. On some of them, it'll be wrapping around the door. All the homes will have stone wainscoting along the front. In addition to there being vinyl siding with either accent shake or accent board and batten, the side and rear will be entirely composed of vinyl. This will meet all the requirements in our design standards of Chapter 1171. But if there's any other questions or details that we'd like to discuss, just let me know, and I hope to answer them for you. Thank you.
That one detached unit, I don't know if we asked that the last time, is that a specific purpose unit?
The developer just wanted to point out at the last meeting, I remember that this unit up here isn't technically an attached unit. But just due to spacing, they weren't able to get another one here. So when I wrote the report, I just wanted to,
I thought it was RJ's house.
Maybe.
I thought that was your house, that one detached.
But Ron was correct at the last meeting that there is one detached.
Any questions for staff?
I just so wish we could get away with using any vinyl. I drove through a subdivision the other day, and I know it was newly put up, but it was just so warped, and it just looked so cheap. I know it's on the backside, but I could still, from the roads I was going in and out, I could still see it, and I didn't like it at all. That's just my opinion. I'm entitled to it.
That's why some of those upgraded ones are at that, like, 0.44, and those are pretty stiff, at least. I mean, some of the older.
Vinyl sometimes is how you install it. They hang it so that it's not nailed completely into the wall, and it moves with the seasons, and so sometimes you get that, we call it oil canning like that, when it's nailed a little too tightly. Still meets code and all that good stuff, and obviously vinyl's been around for a while, and again, as we're working on a comprehensive plan here and talking about these issues, I just point out it's definitely a more affordable material for many people. And actually, the product's come a long way, as has cement siding, so at least we have more choices now, I guess.
Mine was put out 23 years ago, there's been no mortgage at all. Absolutely none. And that's probably almost a 50-foot side on Houck Road. And it, as you said, it all depends on the installer. If they install it right, you don't have that. If it isn't, you're gonna have it. I mean, you hate to say it, but that's.
Again, it's more an aesthetic thing. The material still performs whether oil cans or not. So,
Just doesn't look good.
Just look cheap.
yeah,
I
it's
say it.
it's
It
just
just
oil
looks cheap.
cans, and it doesn't look as good.
And these are brand new houses.
Yeah.
Would the applicant like to come forward? Just state your name and your address once you reach the microphone.
Good evening, RJ Sabatino, 15 East Lane Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. Happy to be here. I think that kind of the explanation thus far has been much appreciated. This will be vastly similar to Montclair Valley, which has been very successful. Empty nesters mostly. With that being said, I think I can answer any other questions you have, and we look forward to moving along with you.
What was the price on those?
So Ryan
Generally.
started at low 200s, but obviously, I mean, they have like record absorptions and then kind of increasing a little bit from there, obviously with the demand. Not sure who the builder will be here yet, but as far as Enclave Valley goes.
It still seems high for empty nesters. I mean, it's great, it's good, I just mean, buying it still seems high.
Very desirable.
Any other questions? All right. Well, there's no members of the public here this evening to speak on this, so what's the wish of the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve 2020-0236 final development plan with all staff recommendations.
Motion by Mr. Prohl,
Second.
second by Mr. Volnick.
Mr.
Yes.
Badger? Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Prohl?
Yes.
Mr. Volnick?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve 2020-0237 final subdivision plat with all staff recommendations.
Motion by Mr. Prohl and a second by Mr. Volnick.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Prohl?
Yes.
Mr. Volnick?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Chairman Simpson?
Yes. All right, motion carries. Thank you and good luck.
You didn't ask if there was anybody in the audience who wanted to speak.
I did.
Oh, raise it? Oh, did you?
said
I'm
sorry.
Did I catch you napping over there?
Oh, well, that was me snoring.
All right. Planning Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I think with the hour and your agenda, the only thing I wanted to update you on is the progress of the comprehensive plan and the 30-person steering committee. We have met here in 2020 and made some additional progress, and I think at this point we're in process of drafting the plan. The next big point of public involvement will be to react to that draft plan. Obviously, we'll be back to the steering committee before that happens and have to schedule out that piece of, and the last piece, public involvement. But certainly would encourage all of you to continue to be involved in those discussions. It's obviously, it's a comprehensive plan, so it's complex, and it covers everything. And we're having a lot of discussions, as is council, about growth and development and housing and attainable housing, and high-end housing, and all kinds of housing. And we're continue to have our community conversation about road infrastructure in particular, which really is kind of regardless of whether we grow one more house or not, in my view. So those are all discussion points that we obviously are going to have through the comprehensive plan and try to bring those together in a policy document that will land on your desks at a point in, hopefully by mid-year is our goal, and then to City Council. We've been at this since 2018, as you'll recall, and so that's a normal time frame for a community this dynamic and this size, but we need to get on with the next policies for the city of Delaware as well. And I really, the steering committee is unbelievable. They have been absolutely great in handling a ton of information and also public involvement and providing feedback to us and our consultant. Even our consultant who does this all around the nation has remarked at the quality and just attentiveness of our steering committee. So that is a testament to our citizens ultimately, and those of you that are on that committee, obviously. So I like the way it's coming together. I think it's going to help us focus our priorities with the city of Delaware and answer some big policy questions. But it's not a blueprint, as we know. It's not a Rosetta Stone. It is able to be looked at as we go through time. And it won't answer all the details for each specific site. That's not its purpose. We will continue to do some strategic planning and corridor studies and those sorts of things as we move along to hopefully implement what looks to be emerging from that planning process. So I appreciate all your service on Planning Commission and to the steering committee. That's it.
Next month.
Oh, Jordan reminds me, thank you. We did fill our open code enforcement 2 positions. So this would be transitioning into our head of code enforcement. It's going to take us several years to transition from the 30 years and start from Jerry Warner's start of code enforcement, and to just draw out everything we can from his brain. But Doug Richmond, pleased to announce and happy to announce that Doug Richmond started today as the code enforcement officer too. He had before this point been our city arborist. So we had about 50 applicants and 5 outstanding final candidates that made our job very, very difficult, Lance and Jerry and I's job in deciding on the final candidate, which sounds bad when I say it like that, but it's actually really good because that means we got 5 great candidates, all for different reasons, and that's ultimately the most we can ask for in terms of having to make that tough decision. But Doug emerged as our final candidate of choice, and I gotta say, he jumped in with both feet today, and even wrote some violation notices. He's excited just talk about hitting the ground running. So a lot to learn, but I know he's excited, and we are too. That's a position that we've been looking forward to. Next, we will look to fill a building inspector, electrical inspector position. So if you or anybody in YouTube land here knows of electrical inspectors who would be interested to also obtain their RB at the residential building official certificate, so you can inspect residential building as well within a year or so. We would be very interested in seeing that application and talking to them and having them possibly join our team as we grow and develop. And we have a lot of capacity needs, but we also have succession needs. We're in the window of some significant retirements within our department in general, and buildings and inspections in particular. And these are highly trained and certified positions through the state of Ohio that require a lot of technical skill. So, and then after that, we will get Doug really situated and look to fill the code enforcement officer 1 position with his involvement in that, obviously. That's the plan. Well, we handle these in a comp plan, but other than that,
What are you looking at
Thank
for
you.
next month?
Right now, we have 2 new buildings in Coughlin Crossings development, and the county's actually doing their rezoning for the fairgrounds.
working on several other cases and projects that'll probably be coming to you in the next few months as well.
All right. Commission member comments?
David, I don't know how you and your staff do it.
I don't think they do either
Just-
right now.
Appreciate that. Just to be able to write all of this stuff that you write and still do the other things that you guys do, it's just amazing, amazing.
We appreciate that. I'll tell you, these guys miss a lot of lunches, and I appreciate that. They work really
That's what
hard.
DoorDash is for.
They work really hard. Jordan may know how to do that.
I'm cheap at that.
Nothing wrong with that.
I am out April 1st. I will not be here April 1st.
Well, that's a joke. It's
Are you
April Fool's
joking?
joke, but we're not going.
Commissioner, since you bring up April 1st, I'll take the opportunity to say that that is, unfortunately, that day was selected as Census Day in America long ago. And I just put my plug in, I might have selected April 2nd or something, just because it would be April Fool's Day. But in any case, that's long been Census Day. All of you represent many, many groups and have lots of contact throughout the community, and not just this community, the broader Central Ohio community. If you would be so kind as to reinforce the benefit of filling out your census forms, 9 questions. If you could do it all by phone. Most people will start receiving postcards to remind them to go online this year, or they can do it by phone. If they really want someone to show up on their doorstep and ring their doorbell and bother them, then they should not do it online or over the phone, and an enumerator will come by at some point and try to count them. But that data has led to grants for this community that have built schools, have built parks, have built the zero-depth entry at Mingo Park here, repave our roads, have provided many other necessities and infrastructure and housing for this community and all the others around the nation. So getting counted accurately is extremely important to our community, especially because we are dynamic. We're growing so fast. The estimate numbers, I think, are really off. And so hopefully that will prove me right by getting everybody counted here that we know, and Carrie knows, and the police department knows, and the fire department. We know how much we're doing every day and how many people are here and what we have to do, but we need to get them counted accurately. So appreciate you mentioning you're not going to be here.
Went in direction.
Wait a minute. Correct date out.
A little tired.
I had a phone call the other day that told me, and Dave, I'm probably directed this at you, that Village Gates Apartments is going to become condos, and that the apartments at Seattle are like at 120 pre-rented, and a lot of those are from Village Gates because they don't want to buy those condos. They're going to move over there. Have you guys heard anything like this?
I haven't heard anything like that.
Okay.
But that does happen. As this body and council is well aware, we can't really legislate if
No, I know.
somebody in a subdivision rents their house. Sometimes there are covenants related to that, but in terms of public regulations, hadn't heard that. I do know that the Flats on Houck, haven't heard Seattle House, but Flats on Houck is doing quite well in their
There's
leasing.
75% rented availability.
Considering it's still an active construction site as well. And Truckless is coming along as well. That site is a little more challenged because they had to build from front to back. So if you want to go try to rent something, you're literally going through the construction site. So it's a little difficult, but that's wrapping up. It looks good, I think, and I anticipate that will be absorbed quickly in this marketplace as well.
Okay. And then I did send Elaine and Dave an article today about apartments, smaller apartments, and then I asked them to share it with the rest of you from a pretty good realtor who's does a lot of commercial stuff, and I found it very interesting, so I wanted to share it with all of you. So Elaine will get that out.
And I haven't got that out yet.
I actually sent that out prior
You
to
sent
the
it?
meeting.
Okay,
If you don't get it, I'll resend it.
thanks.
It was a good article.
I got nothing.
Just to echo Mr. Badger's comments, you guys do a great job. It's very impressive, and it's a lot to be proud of. And, yeah, I don't know how you do it, so thank you, guys.
I just feel like you're left out.
Well, I was going to
Hey, Carrie,
actually
I'm so sorry.
say,
You did a
thank
great
you to
job, too.
staff
I'm
and
so
the support team.
Thank you. I was looking this way, my apologies.
Carrie got us all cookies.
I have a trunk full of cookies.
Oh, no, a trunk full of Girl Scout cookies?
Why didn't you bring them in?
I didn't find it appropriate.
Oh,
But you know where to find me.
Oh,
get
geez.
you down there.
No, I always consider the compliments that go to them. They do the bulk of the work, and we do our own piece, and we work and compliment with each other, and
You've been invaluable in some of these meetings, so.
Had some heavy lifting tonight. I mean, you definitely,
I think I spoke more tonight than I haven't all day.
it's just great to have the right people here, that's for sure. Thanks for all you guys do.
Staff does a lot of trips up and down William Street between the two, East William Street facility and our home here to cover meetings and do, sometimes we're passing each other on William, so maybe we got to get the logistics down a little bit.
Mhm. All right, next regular meeting, as previously mentioned, is April 1st. And look forward to seeing everybody but Dean here, apparently, unless he's kidding us.
No, I'm not kidding.
So,
Spring break week, by the way.
all right, so we are adjourned at 8:46 PM. And this is a shameless plug off the